What is happening to Alexander Zverev? Since reaching the Australian Open final, his level has plummeted, and the Miami Masters 1000 was no exception. His early elimination against Arthur Fils has been a major blow to his season, but it has also had an unexpected effect on the ATP rankings. While Zverev continues to struggle to find his best form, Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner have benefited indirectly. How does the German's decline impact the race for the world number 1 ranking? Stay until the end, because this setback could change the landscape of the tour. Since playing in the final in Melbourne, Zverev has not shined again. In Buenos Aires, Rio, Acapulco, and Indian Wells, he suffered unexpected defeats, and in Miami, history repeated itself. Despite taking the lead in the decisive set against Arthur Fils, the German lost control of the match and ended up falling 3-6, 6-3, 6-4. His lack of confidence has been evident in crucial moments, where he previously dominated with authority. This concerning trend has raised doubts about his mental state and his ability to recover before the clay court season begins. Fils, on the other hand, continues to prove his potential as one of the most promising young players on the tour. At just 20 years old, he has already reached the quarterfinals in 2 consecutive Masters 1000 tournaments. In Miami, his next opponent will be Jakub Mensik, who advanced without playing due to an injury to his compatriot Thomas Macaque. For the Frenchman, this is a golden opportunity to climb further in the rankings, while Zverev faces a ranking drop that could affect him in upcoming tournaments. The German, who was a finalist in Miami in 2018 and a semi-finalist in 2024, loses 300 points with this elimination. His total drops to 7,645 points, which not only distances him from the race for number 1 but also makes him vulnerable to advances from his pursuers. With his confidence at a critical low, Zverev will need to rediscover his best version before the clay season puts him under even more pressure. How Sinner and Alcaraz benefit from Zverev's fall? Meanwhile, Jannik Sinner has been the biggest beneficiary of this situation without even playing a single match in Miami. The Italian, who was unable to defend his 1,000 points from last year's title due to his suspension, has seen his closest rivals squander key opportunities. With 10,330 points, he remains comfortably at the top of the rankings, with a considerable margin over Zverev and Alcaraz, who have failed to close the gap. For Carlos Alcaraz, Zverev's elimination has been an unexpected relief. Although his early exit in Miami cost him 190 points, the German's fall prevented him from being overtaken in the rankings. Now, with 6,720 points, the Spaniard has the opportunity to bounce back during the clay court swing, where he starts with a clean slate in tournaments like Monte Carlo and Barcelona. With the pressure of the rankings weighing on everyone, the battle for number 1 has become more about endurance than outright dominance. Zverev is not the only one feeling the weight of pressure. Alcaraz has also shown signs of instability on this American tour, suffering one of his worst defeats of the year against David Goffin. Despite being considered a favorite in Miami, the Spaniard failed to find his best version and exited the tournament earlier than expected. His inconsistency in these tournaments has raised questions about his ability to handle the emotional burden of the race for number 1. Zverev's elimination, however, gives Alcaraz some breathing room in the rankings. Although he is still far from Sinner, the gap with the German has narrowed, allowing him to focus on gaining points in the upcoming tournaments without immediate pressure. The key for the Spaniard will be to regain his best form on clay, where he has historically been more comfortable and where he can take advantage of the opportunity to close the gap with the Italian. For Sinner, the situation couldn't be more favorable. His 3-month suspension seemed like a setback in his path, but the inconsistency of his rivals has allowed him to maintain his lead without playing. Now, with his return scheduled for the Rome Masters 1000, the Italian finds himself in an enviable position. His main goal will be to maintain his advantage until Roland Garros, where much of the mid-season ranking battle will be decided. The mental challenge for Zverev and Alcaraz. One of the biggest questions is how both Zverev and Alcaraz will handle the pressure in the coming tournaments. The German, who has shown signs of mental fragility, will need to work on regaining his confidence before his losing streak turns into a bigger problem. In Alcaraz's case, the key will be to take advantage of the clay court tournaments to regain his rhythm and prove that he can still challenge Sinner for the ATP throne. Zverev's early exit is a reminder of how unpredictable the tour can be. What seemed like a tight race for number 1 has taken an unexpected turn with the struggles of 2 of the main contenders. Now, with the clay season just around the corner, the real test begins. Will Alcaraz be able to close the gap? Can Zverev overcome his confidence crisis? Or will Sinner continue his dominance unchallenged? Zverev's elimination in Miami has been a tough blow for the German, but it has also reshaped the battle for number 1. His decline has benefited Carlos Alcaraz, who now has a golden opportunity to make up ground during the clay swing. However, the biggest winner of this setback has been Jannik Sinner, who remains at the top without playing a single match in March. With the clay court season on the horizon, the race for the ATP throne is becoming even more intriguing. Zverev needs to rebuild his confidence after a series of disappointing losses, as his mental resilience will be tested on the demanding clay surface. Alcaraz, on the other hand, must capitalize on his favorite surface to regain momentum and prove that his recent struggles were merely temporary setbacks. Meanwhile, Sinner, who has benefited from the inconsistency of his rivals, will aim to solidify his dominance and maintain his lead at the top of the rankings. The coming weeks will not only shape the ATP hierarchy but also set the tone for the rest of the season. With crucial tournaments in Monte Carlo, Madrid, and Rome leading up to Roland Garros, every match will carry significant weight in the battle for supremacy. Consistency, physical endurance, and mental fortitude will be decisive factors in determining who emerges victorious. For Zverev, Alcaraz, and Sinner, the stakes have never been higher, and each will have to navigate the pressure of expectations while striving to assert their dominance on one of the most challenging surfaces in tennis. Carlos Alcaraz, a moment of crisis or just a bump in the road? Carlos Alcaraz is not going through his best moment. At the start of the season, he seemed poised for another great year, with a strong performance at the Australian Open, a title in Rotterdam, and good results in Doha. However, the US swing brought an unexpected reality: 2 consecutive losses that have raised questions. At Indian Wells, he lost in the semifinals to Jack Draper, ending an impressive 16-match winning streak. Even so, his elimination was not alarming, as the Brit played at an exceptionally high level and capitalized on his chances. The real blow came in Miami. Alcaraz debuted with a performance far below his usual level and fell to David Goffin in a match marked by a lack of confidence and physical discomfort. Although he did not suffer a serious injury, his body language reflected discomfort and nervousness, something rare for him. This defeat set off alarm bells, not only because it meant an early exit but because it exposed certain weaknesses in his game. His unforced errors increased, his serve was inconsistent, and his aggression diminished in key moments. Alex Corretja's perspective. Corretja also highlighted the importance of patience in Alcaraz's development. While his rise to the top of the ATP rankings has been meteoric, it is essential to remember that no player reaches their peak overnight. The former world number 2 pointed out that even the greatest champions, including Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, and Novak Djokovic, faced periods of inconsistency early in their careers. Learning from defeats, adjusting strategies, and improving weak points are all part of the journey to becoming a complete player. A critical factor in Alcaraz's evolution will be his ability to manage expectations. Ever since he burst onto the scene in 2022, winning the US Open and becoming the youngest world number 1 in history, the tennis world has placed enormous pressure on his shoulders. Comparisons with legends like Nadal have only intensified this scrutiny, but Corretja stressed that each player follows their own unique path. Instead of being burdened by comparisons, Alcaraz must focus on his individual growth and long-term consistency. With the clay court season approaching, the young Spaniard has an excellent opportunity to regain momentum. The upcoming tournaments in Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Madrid, and ultimately Roland Garros will be crucial in determining whether he can bounce back and reassert himself as a dominant force in men's tennis.